It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha. Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Dale McKee, Marshall Wood. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Dale, which way is north and which way is south and which way is east and which way is west?
I don't know. All I know is Georgia beat Tennessee.
Yeah, there's some folks glad of that and some folks ain't. It's funny how that works, ain't it?
Well, I think it helped. If you're an Ole Miss fan, I think it had to help because it gave Georgia a win over a top 10 team, which makes Ole Miss win over Georgia more impressive, you know.
Yeah, well, how come they got Georgia ranked over Ole Miss if Ole Miss beat them?
Well, that's just sports writers, okay?
Well, that's the coaches who got them that way too.
I know, but what we're going to say is that what comes out tonight, each Tuesday they pick the big one,
I just can't understand how somebody, you got Ole Miss in Georgia that played in Georgia, Ole Miss beat the crap out of Georgia.
If that stays, of course, now if Ole Miss were to play this week and beat Florida, play Florida and beat them, then, Ole Miss might have been ahead of Georgia because Ole Miss sitting idly there, it was just, kind of, they didn't win their open date, I guess, by dropping. But they really improved, I think, didn't they? Went from, what were they last year in the AP, last week in the AP? I can't remember.
Probably 12.
But anyway,
12.
What matters is the selection tonight. But if that transpired and on December the 7th, it came out that Georgia was 8 and Ole Miss was 9, that means that Ole Miss travels to Georgia to play them and everything.
Is there any world in which you would put two teams with equal records, the one that lost in matchup play over the one?
Well, the only thing,
no,
I completely understand that, and that's a difficult decision. But when you're looking at, to me, when you're looking at Georgia's schedule, who else in the country has played a more demanding schedule? Went to Texas, went to Ole Miss, went to Alabama, and then they had a road game at Kentucky. Yeah. And then they beat a good Tennessee team. So, I really think that,
You think head-to-head don't matter?
Well, I think it matters, but I'm not sure about the committee's thoughts on it, I would think if it came down to it.
What would you do?
Well, if I was on the committee, I would go with the head-to-head.
Yeah.
That was what I would go with.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
I knew I liked you for some reason.
But you just can't. But Georgia's got, I guess, some good things, about. Ole Miss is really, they've only really beaten. I'm just trying to think. Georgia, only top team they beat this year.
And I can remember.
And then they. Now, bowl-wise, I'm not sure who they beat. Let's see, they beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss. I don't know who else is going. Let's see.
They beat themselves against Kentucky, I'd say.
Yeah. The Kentucky loss didn't help. The LSU loss definitely didn't help. Now that LSU's getting beat by Florida, that's even worse. And then their 4 wins. Let's see who they had the 4 wins about. South Carolina was a big win.
Yeah.
Because South Carolina's coming on strong.
And they really are.
They played an exciting game.
So they beat Georgia and South Carolina. They beat 2 really good teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? We're just going to take it however they send it, aren't we?
Yeah, they are. Right now the biggest talk in the sports world is who's going to play an SEC championship. Well, really, it's going to be the Texas A&M winner. When they play in College Station that weekend of Thanksgiving, because they've both got 1 loss now, and I don't really expect Texas to lose this week to Kentucky at home. I don't really think A&M will lose at Auburn with how much is riding on the game. And so one of those 2 teams will be in the SEC championship. So that's almost a gimme. But then you got Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, and Ole Miss all with 2 losses. So you got to pick another team to play them. So
you're going to pick them the highest ranked one out of the polls?
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do, and
So
I think
that rules Ole Miss out.
Yeah, that would be Alabama, wouldn't it?
It would be Alabama. If it wasn't Alabama, it would be Georgia. So there's 2 of them.
Okay, now they pick all the polls together plus what's in the college football. College football poll will be the committees.
That's going to affect all the bowl cities, not this AP and coaching stuff. Yeah.
But no, they go by that. That's part of their formula.
Yeah.
So, but that's all I know. So don't ask me any more questions. I don't want to feel like I'm uneducated.
Oh yeah.
But I am to some parts of it.
You feel like that?
I feel like that because people keep asking me, who do you think's going to be in the playoff? Well, why do you think that? Well, then you voice their opinion, and then you know what they say.
What are you, an idiot or something?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I tell you what, Dale, that wasn't where I was planning on going with the first segment of the night show, but it was very good and entertaining, and I thank you for making me smile so big.
I just follow you. I don't know what you're saying. That's not what you wanted. I mean, I mentioned one thing, and then you just go off. But
go off.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Go off.
I wonder how.
Go off now means to me I'd be punching you in the face now.
One last question. Well, I'll ask this last question.
Choose your words carefully.
Okay. I want to ask the LSU AD how he had a contract for Jumbo Fisher over at A&M for like $80 or $90 million buyout, and how he's going to pay out this new guy at LSU. So anyway, but
they say that's not an option. What I'm hearing coming out of over there.
Well, I would think with NIL stuff, it's going to be hard to get rid of coaches nowadays. Mm-hmm. Really, it's tough raising money.
They're in a world of hurt. But anyway, I'll tell you what. Let's do. Who you got for our guest tonight?
I've got Michael Chavez. He's with the Clarence Ledger Sports Reporter, and he's going to talk a little college football with us.
Well, hot diggity dog. I tell you what, let's not put that off anymore. Let's take a commercial break, and then we'll be back with tonight's guest, Mr. Michael Chavez, right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Michael. We've introduced you as the Clarence Ledger Sports Reporter. And so, we know that you cover some Jackson State football, and you've also covered a lot of high school football. So that's basically going to be our topics tonight. We might stretch off into some other things, but right now, tell our listeners, about like maybe something about your background and how you got to Mississippi.
I'll start with that. Hopefully, the listeners are readers of the Clarence Ledger as well, but no, I digress. I am from New Mexico. I'm born and raised in Albuquerque, and then I went to school for all 4 years at New Mexico State University, which is on the border of Texas, El Paso, Texas, a little bit down south of Albuquerque where I grew up. And I had internships in New Mexico with some papers, and then after graduation I interned with the Seattle Times, which was a great experience out there. I got to cover all the pro teams out there in Seattle, plus the 2023 MLB All-Star Game, which was a blast. And then I found myself applying for jobs, and Gannett USA Today looked at me, and the Clarence Ledger gave me a shot, and that was last year in September, and then I started October 1st, 2023, so I just hit a year about a month ago, and it's been great here so far. I've enjoyed every minute of high school sports and even college scene with Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, and Jackson State as well.
Well, listen, we're glad to have you in Mississippi for sure, because you do a great job with the Ledger. Tell us about the big game in Lorman,
We're not in Oklahoma.
Lorman, Mississippi down there this weekend. Well, we got the Braves hosting the Tigers. Tell us what your thoughts about Jackson State season up to now, and how you think the ball game could turn out.
Obviously, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was some breaking news from this morning that we put out on the Ledger. 7 players were suspended for the Alcorn game from the post-game fight that happened against Alabama State this past weekend. So some tensions were really high after the Alabama State game, considering both teams were fighting for the SWAC East title spot, and Jackson State came out with a 16-10 win, and some tempers flared after. It kind of got a little bit escalated, considering there were 16 overall suspensions from Alabama State, and in total, I guess Alabama State had 9 of those, with JSU having 7. But they're gonna head into Alcorn a little bit depleted, but they're still SWAC East champs, so I'm sure they will come out of that game, win or loss, still with their heads high, considering they have one more game to play. But focusing on the game, Alcorn, they're 5-2 in conference, so that's going to be a little bit of a thing JSU's really going to have to watch out for, as Alcorn, isn't a bad team this year. They were doing really well in the West this season. They're coming off a win against Prairie View, a really good win where they put up 26 points, I believe, and then even before that they put up 42. So definitely an offense that is going to be pretty explosive, but JSU's defense has just been lights out. They haven't allowed a point in the second half in the past 5 games. Wow. So that's definitely a stat that you don't see a lot in college football, let alone maybe even high school football. But their defense is definitely one to keep an eye out for, even though the names haven't been released with the suspensions, but I believe there was some chatter this morning that most of the suspensions were on the defensive side for this Alcorn State game. So JSU might be a little bit lacking just because we haven't seen JSU have a lot of injuries on the defensive side. We've seen a few on the offense, and they've rebounded well from that, but there hasn't been a lot of injuries for this JSU team on defense. So we'll see how their depth really handles Alcorn this upcoming week. I know quarterback Xavier Vaughn at Alcorn, he's playing very well, has over 1,300 passing yards, I believe. But their 2 rushers with Decorian Sewell and Xavier Vaughn, who's a dual threat as well, they might cause some threats to JSU. I know JSU struggled against Alabama State running attack. They did really well against the passing game, but we've seen some games this season where the run game has been a little bit shaky for the JSU defense. But then again, they always come out in the second half and just turn a new lead, considering they haven't given up a point in the past 5 games. So I'm expecting honestly a shootout, especially with the Soul Bowl. Any rivalry game is going to be pretty big, and especially in Lorman, Alcorn's going to give them everything they got from minute 1 to clock at 0. So it should be a shootout, I believe. But I do believe JSU will come out on top, especially since their offense has just been so dominant these past few weeks. Other than the Alabama State game was a little bit shaky, but that was just a lot of self-inflicted wounds. It's not really that Alabama State's defense did very, very well. Jackson State shot themselves in the foot. They fumbled the ball 4 times, even though they only lost it once. But, just kind of having that constant just trying to get something off your back is always tough for a team, and that's kind of what JSU had this past weekend. So I think they'll rebound, definitely much better than last weekend, and I think they'll finish the season with 10 wins and have a favorable matchup against Southern in the SWAC championship in 2 weeks.
Now, when you talk about Jackson State, we know Deion Sanders left a couple years ago. How much of this team is still Deion Sanders' kids as far as who he brought in? Is there still a limit, or did Coach Taylor have to start all over when Deion left?
I honestly fully believe that this team is fully TC Taylor's. There's obviously a few kids that are from that 2022 12-1 team that they lost in the Celebration Bowl with the last game of the season. But we've talked with some of the players that have been from that team, and they've said that this group is just more family based. They spend a lot of time together. They almost know what each other are going to do on the field. So I think Taylor has really brought in a lot of guys that kind of know what JSU football is about and the standard that they have. We normally hear that a lot through defensive coordinator Trenzo Quinn at press conferences, and then Taylor, here and there. But they always talk about the standard that they have, and that standard is, to win football games and win them good, and that's what JSU has been doing. So I think Taylor's brought in. I know Jacoby Morgan, who's a transfer from Syracuse, a Canton native actually, so he played here at Canton High School, but he's been playing great, and he's a guy that TC brought in. Irv Mulligan was another guy who was in, I believe, his first year when TC. Yeah, he was in his first year when TC was also in his first year, fully playing. So TC's really brought in a lot of guys to help shape this football team to where it is, especially on the special team side. I know coming into the year, I wasn't fully surrounded by JSU coming into the year because I didn't know I was going to be covering them, but I did look at some past articles and kind of what was said throughout the preseason, and he really emphasized special teams because that was an area that really, really lacked last year. And, he brings in Matt Knoll, preseason All-American punter who is doing his part and more, whenever the rare times they do punt the ball, but whenever he does, it's mostly within the 20. Gerardo Baeza, who was here last year as well, but he didn't get to play a whole lot last year. His special teams play has been great with field goals and PATs, which has been a huge boost for this team. I really think, Taylor has transitioned this team. I know he did get a contract extension as well, so JSU believes in what, he's doing, and he's really shaped and revamped, this team into his own, trying to, get off those, Dion years that JSU is kind of more well known for. But, I think he's done a great job, and, there's still definitely some games left to go, and I think he'll kind of put the whole SWAC on notice to say, hey, I'm bringing my own flair here. I don't need to really cast a shadow anymore. I can bring guys in and win some football games.
Well, they have sure done that, and they've had a great season. How many wins do they have in a row? I know that they lost their opener, but how many have they won now in a row? 6 or 7?
So they're at 7 wins in a row, which are all been SWAC games. So they're currently undefeated in SWAC. Okay. Their last win was to Grambling State, who is in the SWAC, but the game did not reflect on the SWAC record. So they scheduled it as a non-conference, even though, they were a SWAC team. But
okay,
that was their last loss, which came in middle of September, I think. So it's been 2 months of, full wins.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's just stick on college football for just a few minutes. Just tell us nationally, you think the college playoff committee got it right on the top 12 teams?
It's hard. I mean, you never know if they're going to lean towards who they really think is better or who they think might play better, if that makes sense. Because you look at, Georgia being over Ole Miss, right? But Ole Miss grabbing the win, over Georgia, and a pretty decisive win, I would say. So it's a little iffy, I think. I'm not sure if the committee got it fully right, but, all we can do is just see what they put out. At the end of the day, they're going to put in who they think is the top 12, even though there might be some, whether that's bias or, getting the committee wrong. But I think I do think Ole Miss deserves a shot in, and that's not just being, Mississippi bias at all, but, I think that they've played well ever since that, LSU loss, and that Kentucky loss was bad, but I think they've rebounded from both of those very well. I think with Trey Harris coming back is a huge addition as well to the Ole Miss offense, and, I think come 2 weeks, if Ole Miss isn't in, I think the committee definitely got it wrong. SMU is one where that's a hover team, I think. And I guess it's a toss-up between BYU and Colorado, whoever wins that conference. But I think Texas A&M being out, that's also a plausible case. But yeah, no, I think if the committee adds Ole Miss and only two lost SEC teams, I should say, they would probably get it right, I think. But it's always, a hard thing to manage putting 12 teams in there when you want to put mostly SEC teams, I would say. But at the end of the day, the committee's going to put in who they think is, but there's going to be some teams that are going to be upset, just like how they were with the 14 playoff. But I'm very interested to see how this is all going to play out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, used to on the 14 playoff, you would have. I write a weekly column, and I'd put in there first start of the year. Okay, Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson will be in. Who will be the other team out of the other college teams in the country? Now with the 12, it is a little bit harder. But the thing that we start pointing fingers like why is Ole Miss like 9th, or Indiana's 5th, and they haven't beat anybody with a winning record? Nobody. And then Penn State, they haven't beaten the top 10 team. And you're looking at other teams like that, and they start pointing fingers. But I'm sure people in Indiana and Penn State are pointing fingers at the SEC teams too, saying, well, they don't need to be in there, because they got 2 losses, So anyway.
Hey, Michael, we're getting close to the end of our time. I'm gonna ask you a question, and it's gonna probably lead to another one that you may or may not want to fool with, but we'll find out. Do you get to vote for the Heisman?
I, as of right now, do not get to vote for the Heisman.
Okay. I was wondering, how does that usually work, though? Do you know how that works? Do certain sports writers get to do that, or how does that work? Do you know that?
I don't want to give you a for sure answer because I don't want to lead anybody in the wrong direction.
Okay.
But I do know some media people here on the TV side that do get a Heisman vote.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have to possibly fill out an application or if they hand select media members that have kind of been in the business for a while. But I'm not fully sure on that. But I do know some people in Jackson that do get to vote for Heisman. But me, I currently do not.
Well, let me ask you this. Say you did. Who are you looking around the country, the player that sticks out, of a couple of players that stick out to you around the quarter? If you were a Heisman voter, who you'd be looking at pretty closely right now? Have you seen anybody out there that tickles your fancy a little bit?
It's always hard to not pick Travis, with the two-way player that he is.
That's what I was looking for.
The amount of snaps that he takes. Just kind of the freakish athletic ability that he has, to be able to make these catches against Utah that we saw last week and then interceptions. But I really do think Ashton Jeanty deserves an opportunity. He has kept Boise State in this, playoff contention in the top 25.
Right.
His stat line is, pretty insane for a college running back. I know he was getting even mentions close to breaking Barry Sanders' numbers in college.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I think he has 26 touchdowns. That's really good for a college running back. But
that's pretty good.
But it's always hard to compete with a two-way player.
Yeah.
I think that's what the community's going to look at a lot. They're going to say, hey, this guy's. I know that there were graphics that put up, stat line.
Yeah,
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I do understand it, because
Yeah.
You can almost look at it, I hate to bring in another sport, but with baseball with Shohei Ohtani, I mean, it's not easy to play two positions on during a game, whether that's offense, defense, or, in Shohei's case, pitching, hitting. But, I think the committee is really going to take both dual threat, side of the ball into consideration. And I mean, Cam Ward too, he's having I think Cam Ward should be favored over Dylan Gabriel, in my opinion. I think, although Oregon, they are 11-0, number one team in the country, but I think Cam Ward has crawled Miami back from a lot of games where they've looked like they've been out of it.
Ooh, he's hard to get out, isn't he?
yeah, and he can scramble over almost any top defense, in my opinion, and he's gotten a lot of wins under his belt that could have been losses, for a quarterback that might not be at his caliber. So I would put Cam Ward over Dylan Gabriel, and then obviously I'd have Dylan Gabriel at 4. But yeah, no, I think if I were a voter, I would have Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter top 2. But I think depending on how these last few games go, currently I would probably have my vote towards Hunter. Even though I would like to see Genty win because we haven't seen a running back win in a while, but I think what Travis Hunter's doing, and we haven't seen a lot before, right?
Very unusual. Yeah.
And the thing is, he's doing it well.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's kind of struggling at one end, or he's playing better as a receiver, worse as a DB. But he's playing both of them really good. And Colorado only has 2 losses on the season, and he's been a big part of those multiple wins that they've had. So I think Travis is definitely deserving of potentially winning the Heisman this year and taking it home to Colorado.
Well, Michael, we're about out of time. I told you when we had our little pre-interview conference there that I'd show up sometime and say that we're out of time, and we have come to that point in our show. Dale and I want to thank you for being with us. We appreciate you. We're glad you're here in Mississippi. You're doing a great job up there at the Clarion Ledger. I'm going to ask you to hold on for just a minute. We're going to take a break to hear from some of our sponsors, and Dale and I will be back with tonight's final segment of the Brouhaha after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back. I tell you what, old Michael, I enjoyed listening to Michael. We were talking about this in the break. He's a good interview. He's not scared to talk.
Yeah, and that way people don't have to listen to me and you. And our bull that we throw out there. Yeah, our bull we throw out there.
Easy now. Yeah. Did you watch Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight, Dale?
No, I just heard about it.
Oh yeah. What'd you hear?
Well, I heard that the young man barely won.
Yeah.
That Mike took it easy on him.
I didn't pay to watch it, but I've seen some videos, and I saw a video early on where Mike was approaching. I used to do that ducking and that weave, and he'd go to the body, he'd come up, and I saw him do that early, and he kind of stuck old Paul with a hook. And then Paul pulled him in there closely. It looked like he said something to him, and then Tyson kind of patted him on the back and said, okay. I like Mike Tyson. I've been a Tyson fan forever. And I think, Tyson's net worth has gone from like $300 million to, less than 10. And which,
living on less than 10?
he ain't got $10 million. You know what I'm talking about? What a guy. But anyway, he got $20 million for this fight. And watching what I've seen in that fight, I think it was a dog and pony show. I think that Paul is a big time YouTube guy. He's got all kind of followers. He set that thing up. It was his dream. He made it happen. He got his $40 million, and Mike got 20 and didn't have to do a whole lot to get it. So I think that's fair enough. I'm happy with it. I thought Mike represented himself well, and I thought Mike, if it was a fight, I believe I'd have still bet on Mike. I didn't bet, but I would. If you turn him loose in the cage, I think I'd go with Tyson.
Yeah, well, Vegas doesn't put out odds on fights unless they're sanctioned, and that was a sanctioned fight. Yeah. But what gets me is who gave him medical clearance to get in that ring? A 58-year-old man.
If it's a sanctioned fight, he has to be approved health-wise.
Right. What doctor would approve a 58-year-old getting in the ring with a 27-year-old?
I don't know.
Huh?
A good one, I reckon. Like we say, boy, he's a good one. I've known a few good ones.
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Listen, we got some sad news, and I know you want to get to some stuff, but I heard Mississippi College wasn't going to be playing football anymore for a while.
Well, I didn't know anything about that till you told me that.
Yeah, well, it just came out this afternoon.
That makes me sad. My blood runs pretty thick up there at MC, and I've always, I did a little time up there, family time. I did some time up there myself, going to school, and loved the Choctaws and what they stand for up there. And they've won a national championship in their history back in the '80s, and I hate to see it go. I really do, because we used to go to all those games when I was growing up, and just. But I'm gonna miss it. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, they got a really nice looking football field, so I'm just wondering, if they keep it in shape. I guess the academies like to play the 7A game there.
Well, they ought to let some of the Jackson public schools play on it, because some of the fields we played on up there, we were playing on one off of Ellis Avenue up there one night, and there was so much dust on the field. I was sitting and calling the game and couldn't see the football.
Well,
there was so much dust.
Well, they ought to call down to Natchez High School and ask them to come up there and play too, because that was a pretty bad field,
Yeah, it's tough. But anyway, we digress. It's getting close to time we wind it up. Bill and I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We thank our guest Michael for being with us, and for you for listening to us. And we want to remind you, since you're such gluttons for punishment, that you can listen to us whenever you want to by following us on our YouTube channel at the Brouhaha, or you can keep up with us on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha. We'd like to thank you again for listening to us. But Dale, it's time now to say goodbye.
Goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, folks, and we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.